Over the weekend, an increasingly unhinged Donald Trump had a total public meltdown, threatening investigations into or prosecutions of ABC, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, and Bruce Springsteen in a series of late night Truth Social rants. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have a lot to look at here, and I want you to brace yourselves. But just a recap, I was actually out of town over the weekend at a rock festival. It was relatively politics-free, and I know a lot has happened while I was gone that we need to catch up on. Starting with the current president of the United States, the most powerful man on earth, who is increasingly unraveling. So we have a series of late-night Truth Social rants where he targets all kinds of people for the most absurd reasons. Let's start with this one. Why doesn't Chairman Bob Iger do something about ABC fake news, especially since I just won $16 million based on the fake and defamatory reporting of little George Slopadopoulous, referring to George Stephanopoulos, host of This Week, ABC's This Week. He was given warnings, but just couldn't be restrained by management. Now I see they're at it again, and I again give these sleazebags fair warning. The wonderful country of Qatar, after agreeing to invest more than $1.4 trillion in the United States of America, deserves much better than misleading fake news. Everyone, including their lawyers, has been told that ABC must not say that Qatar is giving me a free Boeing 747 airplane, because they are not. Instead, and as fake news ABC fully knows and understands, this highly respected country is donating the plane to the United States Air Force/Defense Department and not to me. By doing so, they're saving our country and the American taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars. ABC fake news is one of the worst. Okay, so there's a couple more that we have to look at here where he targets different people, this time celebrities, liberal celebrities. Just quick recap here. That $400 million jet is going to be given effectively to Donald Trump. He says it's going to be given to the Department of Defense, except at the end of Trump's term, he plans to take it with him. And he says put it at his presidential library, where it won't be used by the next president of the United States or the Air Force. It will at best be decommissioned, although there's nothing stopping Trump from just using it as his own personal jet once he leaves office. He currently has a jet. Trump Force One is what he calls it, his personal jet. There's no reason, there's nothing stopping Trump from just replacing it with this $400 million luxury jet from Qatar. And Trump has been called out for this by sitting Republican lawmakers, by the National Review, by the Wall Street Journal, by Fox News people. This is a highly corrupt gift, okay? So he can threaten and gnash his teeth and rant all he wants, but even people on his own side says this looks hella corrupt. The idea that this is going to save the American taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars is just not true. Because if he takes this jet and uses it as Air Force One, it has to go through hundreds of millions of dollars of security enhancements and retrofitting. So potentially even billions, according to some estimates, 3 times potentially the cost of the plane itself. And if the cost of the plane is estimated at $400 million, it could be a $1.2 billion taxpayer-funded security upgrade. And on top of that, the contracts with Boeing to provide additional Air Force Ones in the future will remain in effect. So it's not like Trump is canceling those contracts and leaving this jet for the American people to use for their next president. He's in effect, he is going to be substantially increasing the burden on the taxpayer because of this luxury jet. So he's totally full of shit. And he's upset that ABC is calling him out for it and reporting the facts of the matter. Now, we'll come back to Trump's attacks on the free press, okay? But let's look at some other unhinged rants he had over the weekend. So then he says, how much did Kamala Harris pay Bruce Springsteen for his poor performance during her campaign for president? Why did he accept that money if he's such a fan of hers? Isn't that a major and illegal campaign contribution? What about Beyonce? And how much went to Oprah and Bono? Bono, of course, the iconic lead singer of U2. I'm going to call for a major investigation into this matter, he says. Candidates aren't allowed to pay for endorsements, which is what Kamala did, under the guise of paying for entertainment. In addition, this was a very expensive and desperate effort to artificially build up her sparse crowds. It's not legal. For those unpatriotic entertainers, this was just a corrupt and unlawful way to capitalize on a broken system. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, we've got another rant to look at here, but he's calling for an investigation as the sitting president of the United States. And it comes back down to the crowd size again. Remember during the one and only debate he had with Vice President Harris, in which she beat his ass on live TV in that debate, and she triggered him about mocking his crowd size? He's still thinking about it. Months later, he won the damn election. He beat her. He didn't beat her in the debate, but he beat her in the election. He beat her in the thing that matters. He should be It should be so far beneath him, but he's still in his lizard brain, so insecure and triggered that at one point on TV months ago, a person whom he defeated mocked him on his crowd sizes. That's all this is. It's all this is. Another rant, back to back. According to news reports, Beyonce was paid $11 million to walk onto a stage, quickly endorse Kamala, and walk off to loud booing for never have performed. Not even one song. Remember, the Democrats and Kamala illegally paid her millions of dollars for doing nothing other than giving Kamala a full-throated endorsement. This is an illegal election scam at the highest level. It's an illegal campaign contribution. Bruce Springsteen, Oprah, Bono, and perhaps many others have a lot of explaining to do. Again, doubling down on these rants, threatening major liberal and progressive celebrities that he doesn't like, and calling for an investigation based on conspiracy theories without evidence. As Variety notes, he went on to single out Beyonce some more, repeating an allegation popularized by right-wing influencer Candace Owen, again with no evidence, that the superstar was paid an 8-figure sum to briefly show up at a Houston rally for Harris last fall. Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles, refuted the charge at the time as being completely fabricated. Trump offered no evidence that Springsteen was paid anything, and asking how much Harris paid for his support, which previously had not even come up as a runner-up or rumor or conspiracy theory. Again, so just casting these aspersions, offering no evidence whatsoever. Let's see. As for the Beyonce charge, when right-wing personalities began to float the idea that the singer was paid to stump for Harris last year, Tina Knowles said, quote, "The lie is that Beyonce was paid $10 million to speak at a rally in Houston for Vice President Harris. In fact, Beyonce did not receive a penny. She actually paid for her own flights for herself and her team, as well as all glam expenses." So he is attacking these celebrities and calling for investigations into them and others because of nothing, for no reason whatsoever, no evidence. But he is the president of the United States, and the DOJ ultimately answers to him, and he is politicizing the DOJ in ways that just would make even the best faith interpretation of his claims about the Biden DOJ look like small potatoes in comparison. But if all that's not bad enough, we also have additional things to be worried about. For example, it seems like Trump's pressure against major media outlets is working. So he mentioned in his first post, he did get ABC to settle a defamation case with him that he almost certainly would have lost had it went to trial, according to so many First Amendment attorneys and experts. But he pressured them into settling $16 million because George Stephanopoulos said incorrectly that Trump was convicted of rape or found liable for rape in the Eugene Carroll case, in New York, okay? He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. The presiding judge in that case went on to say in a subsequent hearing after the jury made its decision is that what Trump did colloquially would be described as rape because he digitally penetrated Eugene Carroll against her will, according to the jury. It didn't rise to the standard of the criminal definition of rape. So that's the distinction there. It's just not much of one, right? Colloquially, we would refer, according to the judge, what Trump did to Eugene Carroll as rape. But George Stephanopoulos was imprecise with the jargon. He wasn't found liable for rape. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. And because of that, ABC settled $16 million, okay, to get Trump off their ass. And it's not working. And on top of it, it's not just ABC, CBS that aired that 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Kamala Harris that Trump has been targeting. The CBS News CEO, the chief, resigned. CBS News chief steps down amid tensions over Trump lawsuit. Quote, "It's become clear that the company and I do not agree on the path forward," Wendy McMahon wrote to the staff weeks after the top producer at 60 Minutes resigned. And that was, earlier today. The head of CBS News stepped down Monday, marking the second high-profile departure from the organization within the past month as its parent company contends with a $20 billion lawsuit from President Donald Trump and an $8 billion merger. Wendy McMahon said in a memo that her time atop the stalwart news brand has been, quote, "a privilege and a joy," end quote, but that the past few months had been, quote, "challenging." She joined CBS from ABC in 2021 and took over as CEO of CBS News in 2023. Quote, "It's become clear that the company and I do not agree on the path forward," she wrote in a memo to CBS News staff. Quote, "It's time for me to move on and for this organization to move forward with new leadership." George Cheeks, the president and CEO of CBS, in a separate memo, did not address McMahon's comments on a path forward. McMahon's departure comes weeks after Bill Owens, the longtime top producer at 60 Minutes, left after he said the news magazine had lost its journalistic independence. The tumult at CBS comes as its parent company, Paramount Global, seeks to complete an $8 billion merger with the media production group Skydance Media. That merger requires federal approval, a situation that has led to ongoing internal tensions at CBS News. As it works to complete the merger, Paramount is seeking to settle a $20 billion lawsuit lodged by Trump over accusations that 60 Minutes selectively edited a pre-election interview featuring Kamala Harris. Okay, and again, experts have called the suit baseless, all right? But there's some indication that they might settle to try to get Trump desperately off their ass, and I don't think it'll work. And I want to play this clip. I want to end on this. John Oliver did his Last Week Tonight episode, and it was all about Trump's unprecedented, unparalleled war on the free press. And he has a really good point to make about the so-called selective an interview and the selective editing process. So we're going to play this clip and unpack it together.
Under pressure from the FCC, CBS actually released the full transcript of the interview. And it turns out this is her full answer to the question she was asked about Israel. This is what aired on Face the Nation, and this is what aired on 60 Minutes. So the network didn't take her whole answer out and replace it with something from later in the interview, as Trump claimed. They basically aired both halves of a single answer, and that sort of editing decision for time or clarity happens on TV all the time. As Semaphore pointed out, earlier last year, Fox actually massaged a Trump interview because in the version that they initially aired, this was the exchange.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, then. That is a firm, unequivocal answer. And at that point, they cut away to the next question. But when they later aired a longer clip from that interview, it became clear that his full answer played out a little differently.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
Yeah, in one version, Trump's answer was edited down, and people who saw that missed out on the fuller context of watching his thought process go in real time from, of course, we should absolutely release the files. People deserve to know the truth, to, oh, wait, you mean that, Epstein? To, oh, yeah, you can't believe everything that you read about people.
Yeah. This is the part of the problem, and we talked about this before. What Trump claims 60 Minutes did is standard practice, and Fox News has done it to Trump's benefit time and time again. But Fox News is not under lawsuit by Trump, nor is it under investigation by Trump's FCC, led by Brendan Carr. As a matter of fact, Fox is being protected in many respects because complaints against them have been dismissed or kept dismissed under the previous administration. Brendan Carr has kept them buried while reopening investigations and complaints against networks that Trump doesn't like. As John Oliver explains as part of the squeeze, Trump, from his private capacity as a citizen, who also happens to be the most powerful man on earth, launching lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and then the DOJ or the FCC come in on the other side and they're squeezing these media organizations. But folks, this is where we are. As the executive vice president said from the libertarian organization FIRE, okay, which is a free speech organization, he says, according to their legal director, what Trump is doing is unprecedented. It's far worse than anything any Democrat or any pre-Trump Republican has ever done with his attacks on free speech. And circling all the way back, that makes his unhinged rants and his threats against ABC and Beyonce and Bono and Bruce Springsteen and Oprah Winfrey all the more disturbing. Because not only does he have power behind them as the most powerful man on earth, the man who wields, the power of the federal government, he is showing an ever-escalating inclination to actually follow through. The threats alone would be bad enough, but he is following through, and this is really disturbing, and we have to make note of it. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.